It's pretty obvious that we do not all want to find out who murdered Charlie Kirk. You can totally trust the FBI science now. We're ruling out corruption. That's why we don't know what Jeffrey Epstein files are talking about. Because look, all we had to do was win against Democrats and corruption would be over. Finally, the adults are in charge, and it's going to be the most transparent administration ever, except on the Jeffrey Epstein stuff or the Charlie Kirk stuff, who was a friend of the administration.
Candace Owens just launched an all-out attack against Kash Patel and the FBI for covering up the truth regarding the Charlie Kirk assassination and ignoring, let's just say, plausible leads in this investigation that throw a wrench into the official narrative that some people are, let's just say, skeptical about, even when those new leads come from other members of this administration. So what does that mean? Let's get into it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Anyways, now let's turn our attention to other allies. President Donald Trump. Of course, we have to arrive here because Charlie really loved Donald J. Trump. Okay, he loved him. It is unreal going through my messages to really consider how much he dedicated his entire life to him. And I mean, sleepless nights wanting to ensure that he got elected, reelected, midterm elections, hitting the ground, wearing a MAGA hat. We were everywhere. I was on fire for Trump too. I really believed in Trump. I really believed that if people could wake up to how quickly the media turned on him, that it could be, this conduit to Black Americans understanding that we're being manipulated. Because my focus was all about Black America, right? And what I can say is that from the very moment that we learned the news that Charlie Kirk had passed, I knew spiritually that we were never going to get the full story from officials, right? Not from officials. I can't explain it. I felt that way. And then when Trump rushed to tweet out that, or Truth Social out that photo, an AI photo of him and Charlie with the Star of David in the background, I just knew.
Yeah, it didn't help when Netanyahu tried to seize the moment and make Charlie Kirk into the most, pro-Zionist, rigidly so in the world, even though we know from that text conversation that he quoted, "I have no choice but to turn against the pro-Israel cause, but to leave the pro-Israel cause." That's what he actually said. And many people were duped by Trump. I'm glad to say I wasn't one of them. I'm not gloating about that. But, there was some plausible, angle, according to many, that Trump wouldn't be duped by the deep state this time because they tried to undermine him in his first term over the farcical Russiagate controversy, right? But then when you got into the campaign season and he was actually truth socialing about how he wanted to build that same institution that tried to orchestrate his undermining, his overthrow, his removal from government, the FBI, he wanted to build a grand new building for the FBI, I think that should have raised some eyebrows. But that's where a lot of people are at, and I'm just glad that more people are seeing the truth now that no matter who's going to win the presidency, the FBI isn't going to be honest.
Knew the investigation into who murdered Charlie Kirk was officially over, right? The officials wanted nothing to do with it because there was nobody more psychotically insistent that people stop asking questions about Charlie's death immediately. I mean, early hours, right? More than the people that are dedicated to the Israel lobby, right? These individuals, if you go back, people that are pro-Israel for whatever reason, were like, do not look any further into this death. In fact, I'll challenge you, do me a favor. Find me just one real life pro-Israel individual who is expressing that they don't believe that Charlie Kirk was killed by Tyler Robinson. The evidence is overwhelming that Tyler Robinson didn't act alone, that Tyler Robinson didn't fire the shot, that Tyler Robinson didn't use a 30-06. Find me just one person with a platform who's pro-Israel and says, I want this investigation into his death to continue.
I think she's right about that. I gotta say, I spend some time on Twitter. I haven't seen one of them, one Zionist that, does want to pursue more angles in this investigation. Say what you will about that and whether you think Tyler Robinson is involved in some way or not, but that does seem to be the truth. And of course, all of her naysayers and the most, bloodthirsty Zionists that want the U.S. involved in all of Israel's wars and wants to continue the genocide, they'll, say this all the time. You see it prevalently. They're going to say also that Candace Owens, she's saying she believes Israel did it when she doesn't say that whatsoever. But I think this is true. I don't know any of them. Let me know in the comments below if you know of any, Zionist, hardcore Zionist with a platform, an influencer or something like that, that doesn't buy into the official narrative. I haven't seen that.
It's a bit weird, right? It's a bit weird. Dogs, very silent right now. Very, very silent. And there's like a stake on the ground. They're not moving. It's very weird. They do, all of them, however, I will say, want him to be honored, right? Mostly by your money. They want you to give to Turning Point USA. That's the best way, by the way, that you can honor him. Open up your pocketbooks. They don't have enough money there, right? Clearing like $100 million a year. They don't have enough. Open up your pockets, keep his show going, and don't ask questions is obviously the clearest way.
And don't question Israel. Do whatever Netanyahu wants. Don't question the FBI or the FBI investigation, because that's what Charlie would have wanted, right? Like, this is the line they have to go with to reclaim his legacy. And I'm not saying that if you were Charlie, you wouldn't want people to support his organization. Obviously so. But if it's going to be used in ways that just, try to put smear campaigns out against people trying to conduct investigations, like Candace Owens on their podcast yesterday, comparing the people that are interested in these angles and exploring more than what the FBI is handing us as being addicted to porn, having that kind of addiction to something. I mean, that's just vile, and it's just wrong, regardless of what you think about this.
We can honor Charlie Kirk. They want him lionized, and they did try to lionize him immediately as the most Judeo-Christian goy ever, right? He was basically, why not just put him in a yarmulke in some of these AI photos? That would make more sense. The direction, I mean, so instant. It's just like trying to establish the legacy, right? And keeping with that, we want this to be honorific, not actually trying to solve what happened here. For Charlie's birthday, President Trump signed into law or established rather a holiday. And he decided that October 14th, which is Charlie Kirk's birthday, would be a national day of remembrance for Charlie Kirk. Okay? And I'm going to tell you how I feel about that. Truly Zionists that infiltrated my book club, you did not need to pay the $9.99 to find out how I feel about this. I don't know why people think I'm hiding how I feel. It's very weird. Like, when did people go, oh, we have to try to listen in to hear what she really thinks? I'll tell you what I really think. I think it's crap. Okay? What I said in my book club holds. It's never good when the feds are lining up to give you a holiday. It's not good. Martin Luther King vibes. Martin Luther King Jr. I think maybe the feds definitely killed Martin Luther King Jr. But in school, we get to learn about him. He's got this whole holiday. Oh, he was such a great, I loved that I have a dream speech. Oh, the feds. Oh, man, you're good. You were so great. It's unfortunate that we had to murder you. I don't like it, because the best way to honor Charlie Kirk is very obvious. Figure out who killed him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with her on that, and I don't always agree with every angle of her investigation or some of the conclusions she's drawing, but I agree with that. And people are going to say, oh, she's just a loony conspiracy theorist for thinking the feds were involved in Martin Luther King's death. Well, guess who else believes in that? His family. Martin Luther King's family clung to that belief. Many members of it still do to this day. And guess who else believes in that? A jury. Because what happened in 1999 was a jury found that there was a conspiracy that involved the FBI to kill Martin Luther King. And guess what? That the FBI was responsible for his death. King's family found vindication in this. It was a case in Memphis, I believe, involving corrupt cops and the FBI, where a civil judgment was made to that effect. So you can say this is just kooky conspiracy stuff that Candace Owens is known for, but that's actually what a jury found. That's what a lot of evidence suggests. And it wasn't unprecedented either, because Martin Luther King was given a letter by the deputy director of the FBI. We know this posthumously, that he drafted this letter because of findings from his property after this. William Sullivan drafted a letter trying to convince Martin Luther King to commit suicide, something that King rightfully suspected was from the FBI when he got that letter.
First, let's celebrate the holiday later. I want to figure out who killed him first. And so I'm struck by this. I'm struck by Trump and the lack of demand, the lack of pushing on the narrative. Trump has really represented himself, at least as me, someone who voted for him twice. He represented himself as an individual who didn't trust the federal establishment. This feels like an easy layup here. You're a friend. He viewed you in many ways like a father figure, right? Hey, feds, what's going on here? And I said, maybe he did, because I was in this aggrieved stage, and I really didn't poke my head up until weeks later, when I could stop crying about it every second. And I said, maybe I missed it. Maybe Trump did actually say this is crap. Maybe he did call for an investigation. And we did a search on Truth Social to see how many times President Trump tweeted or Truth Socialed calling for further investigation into Charlie Kirk's murder. And there was only one tweet that we could find to that effect. And this tweet is not what I would describe as him calling for an investigation into Charlie Kirk's murder, actually. Here it is. This is the only one we could find. Why was the wonderful turning point under investigation by deranged Jack Smith and the corrupt and incompetent Biden administration? They tried to force Charlie and many other people and movements out of business. They weaponized the Justice Department against sleepy Joe Biden's political opponents, including me. They allowed the daughter of a judge of one of the corrupt trials against me to become the biggest fundraiser for Biden and Kamala, making millions of dollars for herself and her family. But with her father, the judge, not only refusing to recuse himself, but putting a gag order on me, not allowing any talk about their family corruption and unprecedented conflict of interest. Well, that's not going to age well, the gag order thing, is it?
Notice how he makes this about him, just like he made it about him when someone was a reporter asking Trump about Kirk's assassination, and Trump couldn't help but to immediately switch the subject to White House renovations that were being undergone at that time. I mean, you can't make this up. He makes everything about himself, and it's just the way that this president operates. Is just his demeanor. His behavior is very well documented in this regard. And I gotta say, even the bonds that Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump had, those bonds, weren't as powerful as the bond that the deep state has, the parasitic deep state that runs our policy in this country regardless of who gets elected. This deep state bureaucracy that makes decisions on behalf of us all, despite the fact that we don't elect those bureaucrats. It's just the truth. I hate to say that. I hope that's not always true. I hope the states and localities are able to push back against that. I hope someday we won't have this treacherous deep state, but that's the truth right now.
Every leading legal analyst and pundit said this trial was wrong and should not have been allowed to go forward. But it did because of a corrupt judge who will hopefully pay a very big price for his illegal actions someday. Okay. Scale of 1 to 10, how much is that do you feel about Charlie Kirk? I don't know. I don't know what to think of that. I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah, he just used Turning Point as an excuse to talk about him and the weaponization of the Justice Department against him, which was true, by the way. The Justice Department and the FBI was weaponized against him in specious ways to frame him for treason, saying he was colluding with Russia while he was sending weapons to Ukraine, withdrawing from the INF treaty, denouncing Russia for giving Snowden safe harbor, etc. It was totally farcical on every level, so much so that the liberal establishment doesn't even keep trying to, perpetuate that myth today. Maybe there's a few stragglers, there have been in my comments section. But to that extent, that's right. But he just took Turning Point USA and Charlie's death as an excuse to talk about weaponization against him. He wasn't talking about Charlie.
Like I said, it's pretty obvious. They want us to just look at everything and go, case closed. Don't you see? We're all united. We're standing up here. We're giving him a holiday. We're signing that. And we've got all these photographers here, Turning Point's chief fundraiser lady here, and she's crying. So obviously she loved Charlie. Kash Patel was there. Of all the people, unbelievable to me. They're here. Kash Patel's here, so you can see we're all united.
Yeah, how do we provide a veneer of transparency and trustworthiness? Put in front of the crowd the guy responsible for covering up the Epstein files, covering up the Epstein story. That's how we'll do it. Put Kash Patel out there and say, hey, look, here's our boy. You know this is transparent now. Just absurd and odious.
You can totally trust the FBI science now. We're ruling out corruption. That's why we don't know what Jeffrey Epstein files are talking about. Because look, all we had to do was win against Democrats and corruption would be over. Are we still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? I'm sorry.
She totally gets it, man. She totally gets it. The deep state is its own entity. It is its own power center. It's not left or right. It just exists regardless of who gets elected. Whatever grand clash of ideologies you think is playing out before you in any presidential election, it still operates the same. Candace Owens gets that. God bless her. I love it.
You know, I've realized something actually and truly. They made, in retrospect, the absolute best decision not inviting me to speak at Charlie's memorial. Like, kudos to whoever made that call, because I would have just been on my best Kanye. I would have jumped on stage and just grabbed the mic from Susie Wiles or someone and said, are you kidding me? What is going on here? What is happening? Even Trump's speech, remember when he just kind of worked in the story about Charlie interviewing a fourth grader and he was referring to Breland Holland? And I'm saying Holland, by the way, because that was his name when Charlie interviewed him, because Trump wasn't there, nothing to do with Trump. When Charlie went on that fourth grader's podcast, his name was Breland Holland, and I was next to him. It was me and Charlie. What a weird story for Trump to just obscurely pluck out of thin air.
I actually don't remember this moment. I did watch part of that. I loved Tucker's speech. I didn't see Trump's. I think I saw bits and pieces, so I don't recall that. But I would pay if you would have put Candace Owens on the stage and made a speech there. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't that be interesting, man, to put Candace Owens on stage with all those people, considering what she is saying and what she's doing and trying to seek the truth here? I think that could be a pay-per-view worthy event. Let me know if you agree in the comments below. Would you watch that? That would have been awesome as far as I'm concerned, regardless of my own viewpoints.
To say on stage at his memorial, he wasn't there. He had nothing to do with him. The kid had some connections and, of course, was really sweet and adorable and in fourth grade and super polite and energetic and was like, I'd love to interview you. I can't remember who the guy was who was his dad. I got him the interview with us. And all of a sudden, Trump's just saying this story on stage at Charlie's memorial as if he was there. And he wasn't. So what's going on? Regarding Kash Patel showing his face there, I legitimately do not know how these people do it, okay? I would literally die from shame. I would pass away right immediately from shame before I would show up to that event if I was Kash Patel. Like, did they breed it out? Is this a new breed of human that I don't know about? Where you feel nothing, there's just nothing. It's like a Josh Hammer thing. They don't feel any sense of shame at all. And they can just go, 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 go.
I think that's part of it, honestly, but it even goes deeper than that. It even goes deeper than trying to use Kash Patel, of all people in the world right now. It's like if you use Pam Bondi or Kash Patel to prove, hey, you know, everything else isn't transparency, but here's transparency. Here's your guy and gal. It's just absurd. But again, it goes deeper than that because this is being widely reported that counterterrorism expert Joe Kent, who is one of Tulsi Gabbard's top advisors in this government, brought forward possible leads to Kash Patel of foreign involvement potential in Charlie Kirk's assassination. And what did Kash Patel do? Did he do what he suggested he would do on Twitter, pursue all leads, everything that people are bringing up in the ether of social media and, you know, the web and the independent media? No, he didn't. He immediately became defensive and worried Kash Patel, basically shrugging him off, and not only saying that, but also, you know, believing that this tread upon his precious investigation into Tyler Robinson. Again, regardless of what you think about this, that's just unacceptable. if this does throw a wrench into the case and lead to plausible explanations for foreign involvement or any other involvement in Charlie Kirk's assassination, that is reason to abandon your case against Tyler Robinson. Why wouldn't that be welcomed if you're really transparent, you really want to get to the bottom of truth here? But, Kash Patel was troubled by this. And that's concerning, man. If you're going to say that they're actually operating candidly and honestly here, it just doesn't square with FBI actions whatsoever. This is being widely reported. Fox News is reporting that. The New York Times is reporting that. It's multiple places.
And pretend that you're honoring. I don't understand it. I truly don't understand it, because I have to be a different species from whatever that is. I would melt. I'd rather melt at the floor than show my face, knowing how badly I was dropping the ball. The whole world was dropping the ball. How do you show up to work, Kash Patel? And the answer is he shows up to work and he demands that everybody stop looking into it because he's got it under control. He's got a very small team of people at the FBI that are allowed to touch anything pertaining to the Charlie Kirk case because, this is transparency. Finally, the adults are in charge, and it's going to be the most transparent administration ever, except on the Jeffrey Epstein stuff or the Charlie Kirk stuff, who was a friend of the administration. We got to be a little bit opaque on.
Yeah, doesn't that just say it all? I'm still waiting for Kash Patel's promise to be fulfilled, by the way, that he shuts down the FBI Hoover building and replaces it with a museum to the deep state. I don't think we'll ever be seeing that museum, guys. I hate to, burst your bubble on that one if you still had faith in that prophecy being fulfilled. It's insane.
Real headline, New York Times yesterday, pertaining to how upset Kash Patel was when he received an inquiry from Joe Kent, Tulsi Gabbard's office. They lead the National Counterterrorism, okay?
I was just displaying this one. I didn't know that she was going to display it, but this is what I showed too.
Center, Joe Kent does. And him inquiring about details into this apparently alarmed Kash Patel. Because Kash Patel was alarmed. He called a meeting, in fact, right? He wanted to investigate the assassination pertaining to Joe Kent. They were like, hey, maybe people overseas were involved in his murder. Maybe they were thinking, BB's saying too much. Can we just look at these files because it's our job, overseas terrorism? And Kash Patel was so alarmed by this, so alarmed that they would look into these files, that he held a meeting, apparently. Oh, what are you? This is not appropriate. It's not appropriate for you to be looking into this, okay? We don't want you knowing whether or not there was a foreign power or another entity that was involved in this. And this is the reason that Kash Patel decided to have a meeting with Susie Wiles and Joe Kent and Tulsi Gabbard and Trump officials. I think it said J.D. Vance was in this meeting as well, and nothing was accomplished. Because why wouldn't you, if you're the most transparent administration ever, share, get the help? Hey, we're supposed to be partners in this. Don't we all want to find out who killed Charlie Kirk? And the answer is no. We don't all want to find out who killed Charlie Kirk. I think that's apparent, right? It's pretty obvious that we do not all want to find out who murdered Charlie Kirk.
Well, I think she's exactly right, and it's really hard to deny. I'm so glad that she cited this article. That's exactly what it says. The only correction or only pushback I would give is it wasn't because, there's no documented evidence that it was because that Bibi Netanyahu talked too much. That could be a reason, but that wasn't cited in the article or the information that we have from the White House officials that gave this information to media. But nevertheless, a lot of people are just calling Candace Owens a conspiracy kook. She's a loon. She's lost her mind. I can't tell you how many Zio bots have said Candace Owens has lost her mind in my comments section, but don't elaborate. Don't make an argument. Don't try to justify, an opposing view in any way. Don't even try to explain themselves, thinking that that's good enough. But this is someone from Trump's own inner circle, Joe Kent, very high-ranking official, very close to Tulsi Gabbard, very close to this administration. Many people on the populist right love Joe Kent, by the way. He's seen as a populist right-winger that's generally a straight shooter, a non-interventionist type, to the extent that that's possible in the MAGA sphere these days. That's who people look at when it comes to Joe Kent. And he's providing, hey, there's this angle that we should at least explore. And you have the FBI just looking at Joe Kent through the door and slamming it closed. That's exactly what they're doing. It's the antithesis of transparency. And that's what you're getting from this FBI. It's not as transparent as they led you to believe, I'm sorry to say. So if you think the FBI can just be reformed, it's going to be better just if you bring in new blood or your particular political tribe to lead the executive department, you know, I have a whole story to sell you, because that's not the way that Washington works. It works the exact same way. The only solution is to abolish the FBI, not cling to this hope that you can reform it, or this time it'll be different. This time our investigation will be trustworthy. This time you can trust us on the Epstein files. This time we won't incinerate women and children like we did at Waco. This time we won't ruin someone's life that tried to save lives in the 1996 Olympics, Richard Jewell. This time we won't wiretap dissidents like in COINTELPRO. We won't entrap people into insurrectionary activities like they did on January 6th. The list goes on and on and on. The FBI is guilty of so many evils, and it's no mystery why people can't trust it, even when you put Pam Bondi and Kash Patel at the head of it, if you were a MAGA fan saying, hey, this is the solution we all need when it comes to the deep state. So God bless Candace Owens. She gets this entirely about the FBI. Again, don't agree with all of her conclusions regarding this investigation even. But I think she's a hero for at least following these leads. That's something that I'll always defend her on, even if in some of the particulars that we don't agree. The FBI can't be trusted. It's easy to see why. And, you know, having Kash Patel and his views win out over people like Joe Kent that at least want some more due diligence done here is just wrong and abhorrent if you're asking me. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Is Candace Owens right? Can the FBI be trusted? Can the FBI's investigation be trusted? You know, is Joe Kent right? Is this going to cause any kind of schism in the cabinet, or is Joe Kent just going to be silenced, much like Tulsi Gabbard was essentially either silenced or compromised when it comes to having any weight on Trump's foreign policy? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, also subscribe to Candace Owens. Thank you, Candace. Really appreciated this segment. I thought it was great. And if you like this video, please consider becoming a YouTube member. You can do that by clicking the join button below to support my channel. If you do that, I will give you the access to all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube as my thanks to you. Also, if you want a free copy of my first book, click the link in the description below, plug in your email, I'll send it directly to you free of charge. It's called Compact of the Republic. It's about how the U.S. founders and the original intent designated this country as one where decentralized power, mostly in the hands of states and locality, was the scheme that was designed for the benefit of the United States, and how that vision has been perverted to support a world empire with the FBI front and center of the deep state, regardless of who we elect. Until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.